Please welcome my next guest. Hello, how are you today? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, Hunter. How's it going?
I'm so great. How are you?
Good. I'm having a great day. It's like,
Good.
middle mornings, good stride into the next phase of the afternoon. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes, I feel the same way. What time is it for you? Where are you calling in from?
I'm on the East Coast, so I'm in the DMV area, so it's 11:30 Eastern
Oh,
here.
great. I'm in New York City, so we're on the
Okay,
same
nice.
same wavelength today. Yeah.
Yes, yes, exactly. Very awake.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I even for myself, I was like, no meetings after 3, please. The brain just
hmm
turns into a melted ice cube.
exactly.
So before we jump in, please tell me a little bit more about you and your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Ayana Christie, and I started my journey as a writer. I was an English major at Dartmouth College and kind of talked my way into private consulting as someone
Mm.
who can communicate the intricacies of technology to clients and started out as a technical writer at Booz Allen Hamilton. And then from there, I was writing courseware, developing courseware with a team, found my way into our strategic innovation arm there and built the company's first incubation program at the Innovation Center in DC. And then from there, Google called me and said, "We see what you've done over here at Booz Allen. We would love for you to come over to cloud and help us to strengthen our go-to-market incubation center." And so I did that for some time. And now I am a full-time founder and chief product officer at Bond and Grace. We make classic literature for the modern reader. We make these beautiful collectible coffee table books that incorporate scholarly text, fine art, as well as the full original text of the classic novels people love.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I know it's July, but it's gonna have to be Christmas in July. I'm gonna have to do some shopping for
Seriously, it
some
actually is Christmas
gifts.
in July this weekend.
Oh,
So,
is it? Is this the
yes,
official weekend?
yes, it
Okay.
actually is. Yes,
Okay, I know which website I'm going to get something from
yes.
already.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's bondandgrace.com. And so my journey has been really quite dynamic because I've been able to see every level of product development and product leadership. At Booz Allen, I
Mm,
was doing a lot of investment theses work, incubation programming, looking at incubation at large. At Google, I was working with individual teams and individual concepts, types of products, and helping them to commercialize to be ready for sale. And now
mm.
at the startup level, I'm in the trenches on building product, working with customers, and using all of that knowledge from my journey to build something from the scratch.
Right. Yeah. And we're going to get into that because there's probably several founders on the call. I'm
Mhm.
one itself, so I'm going to be. This is like my note-taking session for me.
I love it.
And I love earlier when you said you talked your way into consulting early into your career.
Yes, yes, definitely. That's how it felt at the time. It was like, people are like, "You're going to Booz Allen? I thought you were an English major." I was like, "Well, I am, yes, an English major, but communication is key, right? You can have the best technologies, you can have a game changer solution for a client, but if they can't feel and understand how it's going to yield results for them and understand that really clearly, your solution is not going to make it to their purse strings."
Right. Yeah. It's got to have that almost an emotional impact for
Absolutely.
things to click for people, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I read some statistic recently that people rarely remember facts from a speech or a
Mhm.
presentation, but they remember a feeling or a story.
Certainly.
Yeah. So now you're a founder, you're
Yes.
in the trenches as you described it. What would
Mhm.
you say are some of the most difficult things of being a founder?
Yeah. I think it's really based on personality, right? Like there's certain things that my personality just doesn't, isn't bothered by. And I'm a New Yorker, I'm from Brooklyn, so my skin is pretty thick to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think being a founder affects people in different ways, or your level of tolerance, the level of support you have as a founder also affects you. For me
Yeah.
personally, because I love data, the most difficult part about being a founder is that sometimes you just don't have all of the information to make a
Mm,
decision,
mm,
and you have to rely on your intuition and say, "I don't know exactly how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to go with my gut, or I'm going to go with some other signals that I'm seeing that might not be dollars and cents or might not have quantitative data behind, and decide that I'm going to take this decision, take this forward. So for me,
Mm.
that is the most difficult part. It's like you just kind of have to make a choice and say and stand on it. You can't be wishy-washy on your decisions when you're going to your team and saying this is what we're going to do. You need to push forward, even knowing you really have no idea how it's going to turn out.
Right, right. How big is your team?
We have a team of 8 right now, and we've
Yeah,
got contractors and vendors, of course, that support us in other ways.
of course. That's a strong number. That's a very
Yeah.
powerful
Yeah, it's a
number.
lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, yeah. And when you're at the helm, that's a lot to, you got to lead, right? You got to
Yeah,
point the direction of the sales.
exactly.
Yeah. So what is, so you worked on your own, you work for some big companies, you
Mhm.
have your own company now. What is the
Yes.
relationship between exchanging your time for money and how do you tell people to shift that thinking today?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And most of us are indoctrinated to perform in a corporate environment where that's exactly what you're essentially doing, right? You clock in, you clock out, you're exchanging time for money, and that's what we're accustomed to. And so, in order for me to be able to break that mindset, I started to think about systems. How do I think about myself as a system? How would I bottle some of the things that I am able to do really, really well and systematize it so that others are able to approach it? That might look like courses, that might look like an ebook, that might look like having a set understanding of how I would teach something and being able to teach that over and over again. So there's less time. I also would recommend folks think about passive income, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when one of the, I coach founders now, in the free time that I have, I coach founders. So one of the things that we often comes into discussion is, well, I have expenses. Like, how do I set aside the idea that I have expenses and I need to work for an exchange, time for money? And one of the ways to try to quiet and ease some of that burden is thinking about passive income. How could you buy into a small business in your neighborhood? How could you invest in real estate or in stocks, like other things that don't require your time and energy in order for you to see dividends coming in?
Mm-hmm. For folks that maybe don't have the luxury of the resources to jump onto something that big, are there some
Mhm.
small ways, some scrappy ways you could get some passive income in there too?
Oh, for sure. I mean, when I was right out of college, I wanted some extra income and I started reviewing students' essays for them at Georgetown University.
Hmm.
And I was an English major from Dartmouth. So I was use what is your most fresh credential and leverage that. If you just learn something at a free course, like how are you going to use that information to help someone else? So I was able to kind of use that skill set of just reviewing and kind of redlining their essay, something that did not require a lot of energy from me
Right.
to create additional income. And so one of the things that I was thinking about at that time was like, what can I do that actually doesn't feel like work? That exchange for
Mm-hmm.
time, time for money, it really it's income on one side. On the other side is like it just feels belabored. Like it feels like you're doing something you really don't want to do. So what are things that you do love to do? What are things that come to you naturally when you're in flow that you can then do on the side in addition to your other income to create more of a cushion for yourself?
Yeah, I love that. And I love hearing about how continuous learning is really important for you. Is there any aha moments that led
Mhm.
you to an innovative solution or breakthrough from your continuous learning?
Yeah, a story that comes to mind, and this, when I think about it, kind of was the impetus of me getting into strategic innovation to begin with. But I was leading a courseware team at the Pentagon at the time. And I was just starting to feel like we're going through the motions. Like I was leading the team, writing the content, everything was going really well. We're getting all, the client is super excited about everything that we do. And so I took up an interest in front end development. And at the time, I saw it as okay, this is a skill set that could use some of my marketing creative mind. I'm just interested in it. I paid for it with my own money, did an 8-week boot camp course on coding, did a project, learned front end development. And then, literally, weeks after I finished that course, we found ourselves hitting a deadline, and one of my developers was not available. And I was able
Mm,
to hop in to get us across the finish line and get that course done in time. And so it was one of those things where everything kind of just came together at the right moment and led me to introduce cross training on the team. It
Mm,
really opened my eyes to the fact that we really needed to have more folks who knew how to do the task of the other person and not depend on this single assembly line that we had formed on our small team. And that cross training led to other agile development types of principles introduced on the team and eventually made me more eligible to be able to move into the strategic innovation arm of the company at the time.
mm. I love that. That's so exciting. That must have, I don't know, my heart started racing a little
Oh,
bit. That
oh
story
my
I was
gosh.
like,
Imagine, right? Everything's going so well. And then the day we don't have a developer available to finish everything on time, I was able to hop in just to kind of get it done, like with the little knowledge I had and had acquired because I was interested in front end development.
yeah. And I can only imagine that as a founder now that you get to exercise that little bit of knowledge all over the place. Like becoming a
Yeah,
founder
that's
is
true.
almost
That's
like
a good point.
you are like the star generalist of the crowd.
Yeah, when we were starting out, I was doing everything. I made our very first website.
Mhm.
I was, also ideating and talking with people and trying to understand what it is we needed to make to be differentiated in the market. And
Mm,
so now we have, expert designers and developers who support us. But when there's something that needs to be done, I still have my programs to be able to see what's happening under the hood, and I keep that a
mm.
secret.
Keep it secret, keep it safe.
Yes.
Yes. Are there habits that have changed the way you work and maybe even the way you
Mhm.
operate day to day?
Yeah. Definitely. I've acquired quite a bit, quite a few habits. Now in my late 30s, I am full of the things that I'm really stuck on. But when I think about this, I think that the overarching habit that really changed me is making myself non-negotiable. And that
Mm,
shows up in a couple different ways. So it might be I am going to the gym 3 times every week for these next couple of months to see what happens. I made that commitment to myself, or I'm going to show up as a selfless leader. So what, and deciding what that looks like. So when moments like having to stay up late happen and I still need to get up to go to the gym at 6:30, it's non-negotiable. I said I'm doing it, so I'm getting up. It's going to happen no matter what, however the rest of the day has to shift. I'm keeping myself and the things that I committed to non-negotiable. And I think that's really important as a top line because it can manifest in different ways, as I've explained. It can be the thing that you said you want to do for yourself. And so you're going to get up. It could also be swallowing your ego when something's happening on the team and you said you're going to be a selfless leader, you're going to be non-judgmental, you're going to serve your team and make sure that they have the best out of you. And that reminder of this commitment to myself is non-negotiable has really affected how I show up in the world and really, really changed me most recently, in fact.
hmm. When did you make that commitment?
It's a good question. Um, I think I probably came to that commitment and like forming it in that way in the last 5 years. I think there were
Mm,
little habits like, oh, I get up at this time. I get up 3 hours before my first meeting. That's something I always do. Or I pause before responding to something where I have an emotional reaction, like these little types of habits. And then when I think about them in summation, it's those commitments are just non-negotiable. Like if I'm saying that this is the person that I'm going to be, then that's it. There can't be a wavering around it or else it's not true.
right. Those incremental changes and
Mhm.
commitments that you've made have created this person that you've always have been meant to be.
Absolutely. Yes. And still becoming, right? There's always room for changes and improvements. And I'm looking forward to the next phase.
I know. Well, I am about the same age as you, so it sounds like.
Okay,
So we're
nice.
on a similar trajectory. So I'm
Yes.
proud
I
of
tell
us.
everyone that I'm 30 though. So this is like a big reveal. I've been 30
29
for the
again
last
over
four
here.
years.
Yeah. 29 every year,
Yes,
29
exactly.
with the moisturizer. This is actually my 39th year.
Yes, exactly.
39, yeah. So the
Nice.
big 4-0 is for me next. So we'll see.
Wow, yeah. Wow, that's exciting though. I mean,
It
I feel like
is.
every decade there's so much more to gain, There's different relationships that you can have when you're 40
Yes.
versus 30. The At the end of the day, there is a such thing as cultural competency and social, codes, if you will,
Yeah.
that change and affect us differently in every decade.
100%. I think earlier in my life, there's the luxury of getting a pass on certain things
Mhm.
just from
Yeah.
naivete and
Right, right,
inexperience,
right.
stuff like that. So
Mhm.
some people are willing to we're willing to lift me up, and that's great.
Mhm.
And now it's a different type of thing because it's
Mm.
not like, oh, well, if you make a big mistake or you haven't learned certain things by a certain time in your life, there isn't that easy
Mm.
pass of forgiveness, but
Mhm.
there is an opportunity for growth and for learning wherever we are in whatever
Mhm.
stage, right?
Yeah, interesting. Definitely. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
So what best advice have you
Mhm.
ever received?
Best advice I ever received. I struggle with this one because I think people give a lot of advice, right? And so
Unsolicited
sometimes,
at that.
yeah, of course, and sometimes the magic is knowing how to sift through that. But I
Hmm.
think best advice I've received lately is be bad at something. And this concept of just trying something for the sake of trying it and being okay with not being great at it is
Hmm.
so balancing. And the idea is that, when you're a type A personality that is committed to excellence and you have this history of achievement, the counterbalance of doing something where you're like, whoa, I don't know how this actually is going to work, or I don't really know how to do this, but I'm in it anyway, is really freeing. And I love that as a concept. And just kind of like having hobbies where like it doesn't matter what the outcome is, it doesn't matter how the finished product is. You're just going to do it anyway and be okay with being bad at it.
That's great. There's as a recovering perfectionist, that's hard
Yes,
for me
same.
to do. But
Same.
it brings that humility, which I think is
For
very
sure.
important, which
Yes,
probably helps your non-negotiable, which is being a selfless leader, right? That's
absolutely.
the domino effect
Yeah,
right
and it's hard, right? It's easy to say, but very difficult in the moment where you're like, I just want to go crazy right now. But I think just you become a better person, and it's so much freeing. It's free. I like the term. I've heard this term before, where it's a much easier and like a much calmer lifestyle to live with your hands open versus them in fist.
there.
And when you commit to just being selfless, there's so much energy that can flow through you. Whereas if you're tight and tense, you can't get that energy to flow.
Yeah,
And this concept of being bad at something or finding that counterbalance has also made me more empathetic to people who are struggling with something that I'm trying to help them to understand, or something where I understand it very acutely and I can sense that there's a struggle in the communication. And just being more attuned to how other people learn, having had fresh experiences of being bad at something, I think it's a great reminder of how to move through the world in that way.
totally. I love that. Love that. So you have this commitment to continuous learning.
Mhm.
I'd love to hear about, do you have a book or a podcast recently
Ooh,
that's influenced your approach to innovation and continuous learning?
yes. I do. This is the oldie but goodie, and I know they've got some new iterations that have come out, but a book that changed my perspective on learning and my perspective on my professional journey was Designing Your Life. Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. So they're the head of design and a lecturer in design at Stanford. And they created this book that essentially uses design thinking principles to help students figure out what they want to do with their life. So they
Mm,
had the experience of being designers, people who were tinkerers and builders, and not knowing whether or not there was a career path for them with that passion and skill set. So
mm,
I was, at the time that I had discovered this text, I remember really acutely, I went on a vacation with my cousin to Hawaii and I took the book with me and I just consumed it and did all the workbooks and everything on the beach. Like I'm that person that does work on the beach.
yeah.
And so
I,
and so At the time I was like, I have all these interests and these like different skill sets that I've picked up, and I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I don't know what to do next. And it
Mm,
really helped me to challenge or channel rather the types of things that I want to put my energy in most and where I wanted to learn to be able to develop something out of what felt like nothing at the moment. It just felt like I had all of these desperate things that I like to do, and I was not focused on any one path or any few paths. And in the book, they've got really actionable work pages and worksheets where you log what you do daily and how you feel in those
mm,
tasks. You know, which ones are sucking your energy, which ones are giving you energy, which ones
mm,
are you in flow while you're, doing, and then going back and assessing, okay, what are the different career paths, even if you were to make it up,
yeah.
that you might be able to assemble when you take the things that give you energy and the things that you would do in flow. And then it walks you through how to reach out to people who might have similar experiences out in the workplace to learn from them. And to start to build your own path and build your own concept of what you could be actionably doing in the role with your talents.
Well, that sounds like a great place to
I
start.
love it. Yeah, it's a great book. I recommend it to everyone. Now they have a workbook
Yeah.
version. They have another version that's specifically designing your work life. Like, they've really taken off.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow. Cool. Well, I look forward to reading it. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
please.
Yeah. I'm a big Audible person as well,
Yes,
or,
yes. Mhm,
listening to a book.
mhm.
Because then I feel like you, like working on the beach, I can be listening to something while I'm like doing the dishes, and it makes
Yes, yes.
it's not such a miserable experience.
Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly.
So, what was the turning point for you to be like, you know what? I'm going to be a founder. I'm going to start my own company. I'm
Mhm.
doing it. It sounds like I've heard pieces of that story leading up to that moment. What
Yeah.
was that click that you decide I'm going for it?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a couple things that come to mind. One, I always knew I was going to start a company or be a part of a founding team. I've come
Ah,
from entrepreneurial parents. My parents are immigrant entrepreneurs. My dad has always worked for himself, and so I
mm,
grew up in that environment. So I always knew, like, no matter what, I have to do this thing just to kind of make sure it's not for me, So I used to say that back when I was at Booz. I was like, one day I'm going to leave and just have my own company. Like, I have to do it. I can't just not do it. So there's that. My life was already going into that trajectory.
yeah.
And so while I was at Google, a really good friend of mine, Jacqueline Bond, called me and said, I have this idea because I love classic novels, but I can't find a beautiful coffee table book version of it. She's like,
Mm,
you're the only person that I think can help me make this real. And so, I thought about it a bit and I was like, well, I think there's a market there. This is during the pandemic as well. So people are investing in things for their home, like
uh-huh.
coffee table books. So
Yeah.
there was some light at the tunnel for sure. And so when she called me with that idea and the opportunity to join her in founding this company, I was like, yes, this is the where I see the trajectory of my life going. This is what I want to do anyway. This is an excellent opportunity for me to dust off and sharpen and practice my product skill sets. And I think this is really exciting for me to bring back full circle my English major as well, because now I
Mhm.
serve as the producer of our art novels and the managing editor using skill sets that I have been able to hone over the years. So it's a really incredible, incredible full circle moment.
I love that. I love it. I'm so excited to see these books.
Yes, please. There is something I think that we have touched on a part of the market that has been underserved. So these are
Hmm.
coffee table collectible books that are meant to be read and experienced and shared with others. And they also have a message, right? These classic novels were written at a time where people like me were not as relevant, right? And so we teach folks how to read them differently and see something new in them and welcome folks who felt like classic novels were not for them to
Mm,
a new way to experience the beauty of the text and the artistry from these authors, whether we like it or not. Like, these authors are important. They gave us a trajectory of devices that are used in literature and revered around the world, and they are part of our culture. They've been major contributions to culture, and so how do we modernize them to include more of us?
wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. I also got the visual that it's like kids, they have their kids books with like big front and center pictures. It's like that for us, for
Yes,
adults.
yes, yes, definitely. The visual component is very compelling. It's all bespoke fine art. This is an example of one of the pieces from our Secret Garden book.
Oh,
And so
cool.
it's very visually compelling for adults.
That's great. Or very great stories to read to your kids maybe too, because that,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I love that. So we're almost out of time here.
Okay.
Do you have an unconventional skill or hobby you picked up that has
Hmm.
unexpectedly benefited you in your career as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. This was a tough question for me. I really thought long and hard about this. And I think my answer is when I was in college, I led a hip hop dance group. And so I was a choreographer and I also produced all of our shows. And when I say produce, I mean like I'm mixing music in my dorm room and
Yes.
choosing how the songs flow with each other, what songs we need to be doing to have this 14-minute show. And
Yeah.
that creative process of, diverging and converging, like you have all of these ideas and all of these different moves, and then you have to edit them down to make sure that the audience experiences it in a certain way and make sure that there's also a great cadence so the dancers are not going crazy, moving, exerting all of their energy all the way through, kind of giving breaks in between. Like that process of piecing something together with all of these different options and ideas is something that I'm using actively now as an editor. Now, as a chief product officer, I also double as our managing editor and producer of these books. And
Mm.
that skill set of being able to connect creatively with my designers and also connect with our scholars who do a lot of the writing and also think about this product as something that has to be connected to the customer and finished on time. Like all of those skill sets come together into this crazy role. And I do think like being a hip hop group lead slash choreographer slash show producer is showing up lately in that way.
I love that. It sounds like a really fun place to work if you're in charge.
Yeah, it's fun. Even when you're not in charge, I think it's fun too.
Totally, totally. Good, good, good. Yeah, I meant to work
Yeah.
for you and with you. That's what I was
Yes,
implying.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Not just fun for you. I would hope so. It
Yes, for
sounds like
sure.
a fun place for all. Um, Ayana, this has been great. We're out of
Yes,
time.
thank you, Hunter.
Thank you. When can we have you back? And what is the best way to stay connected with you for folks to reach out?
Yes, folks can find me on LinkedIn at Ayana Christie, AyanAChristie, as well as Instagram, Ayana Christie on Instagram. And my company is bondandgrace.com. And we are also on Instagram at Bond and Grace.
Keep it simple. I love it. That's the
Yes.
way to do it.
Namesake.
Yes. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank you so
great
much,
rest of your
everyone.
day.
Take care.
Take care now. Bye bye.